Hey guys, welcome back to Mad Father Extra. In this video we are going to be taking a little bit of a look between all three versions, comparing the three versions of the game, just to see how everything has come along over the years. Now, there have been a lot of changes, and naturally I can't cover everything, so we're just going to focus on the more obvious changes. I've got a list here, so I'm going to go through a list of a bunch of significant changes throughout this version. So we're going to start out with character UIs, then going to look at how the controls have changed, the text events, and just a few other things here and there. Okay, starting out with Aya Drevis, the main protagonist. Yeah, I definitely think Aya is the most easily recognizable one. If you look here, if you look at her eyes in the classic version, they're more rounded, and her pendant there's not as much detail in the pendant compared to the newer versions, if you see here. Also her bow, if you look here, there's a bit of a notch on her bow here, which on the other designs, the newer designs, the bow is just more straight, where there's a little knot right there. So that's a bit of a difference. Also, if you look at her hair, there's more of it, whereas in the newer versions there's more gaps between her hair. So I definitely think Aya is the easiest one to tell the difference between. Out of all the characters, I definitely think Aya is the easiest one to tell. And I actually think she looks a lot more younger in the classic version, which I think I kind of prefer, because I kind of prefer her old design, to be completely honest, because again it does make her look a lot younger, and she is pretty young at this point in the story. So I just think I don't know. I think they should have kept the eyes. I think they should have kept the shape of the eyes, I think, and just done a bit more with the pendant, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, as you can see, the remaster and the remake are pretty much the same thing, just maybe with a slight bit of upscaling, and I don't know, I think maybe her skin might be a little paler in the face perhaps, but other than that, it's pretty much the same design. Okay, next up we have Aya, her child form, her childhood from the flashbacks and stuff. So, yeah, I'd say for the most part her sprite has changed not really all that much from the first two versions, and then in the remake she's had a completely different design, because yeah, not really much of a difference in the first two. Whereas if you look at the remake, there's a bit of a difference, because her bows in her hair are a lot darker. Like they're more lighter shade of blue in the classic and remaster, whereas they're much darker shade of blue in the remake. Also, her dress looks completely different. Like in the classic version, her vest looks more like a honestly, her dress looks more like a vest or a waistcoat or something. Whereas in the newer version, it's got a bit more detail. Like there's a couple of buttons, there's a couple of lines going down to make the skirt kind of design that most skirts kind of have. It's yeah, and again, I this time I think, I don't know, I'm not sure which one I prefer, because again she looks younger here, I think, but at the same time I'm not really sure which one I prefer here. But yeah, there's definitely been a bit of a change here. It's subtle in some places, it's subtle, but it's definitely noticeable once you have them side by side. Okay, next up we have Aya, her all grown up form in the post game. So again, the biggest difference I think in the classic version is her eyes. Again, her eyes are more rounded, like in her normal form in the classic version. Also, again, her pendant, I don't know, I think her pendant's got a bit more detail in it than, I don't know, her pendant's got maybe a bit more detail than the like regular Aya perhaps, I don't know. It looks a bit more detailed, I think. Then yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest difference is probably her eyes, to be completely honest. Yeah, not it's other than that, it's kind of subtle. Okay, next up we have Alfred Drevis, Aya's father. Again, he's another character that's easy to tell the difference between, mainly by looking at his glasses, because in the classic version he had more oval-shaped glasses, yet in the remaster and remake his glasses are more rectangular. So yeah, definitely, it's definitely easier to tell the difference there. Other than that, there's not really that much of a difference. I think his hair might be a slightly different shade compared to before. Yeah, it's subtle, but his hair is a slightly different color. It's not, again, it's not too noticeable unless you have them side by side, but yeah, if you look at the glasses, that's where it's a bit more obvious. That's basically Aya and Alfred, I think, are the two characters that are easiest to tell the difference between. Next up, we have Maria, Alfred's assistant. And if you look at the classic and the remastered versions, it's pretty much the same design, pretty much, except maybe a little bit of upscaling and a couple patches of blood on her here and on her arm. But other than that, it's pretty much the same design, just with a little bit more blood added. And to be honest, for the longest time, before the remake came out, I kind of felt like if there's any character that's in dire need of a redesign, I definitely think it's Maria. And I gotta say, I'm quite happy with how the remake design turned out, because yeah, like you can tell it's her, but there's a lot more detail going in. Like, I don't know, I just feel like, you know, the shape of her hair and her head is just general nicer shape. And now that I look at her, she kind of reminds me of a Russian doll with this new design, I think. But all around, I think it turned out pretty well. Yeah, I definitely prefer the remake design here for Maria, but yeah, I definitely think she was in dire need of a redesign, personally. Okay, next up we have Monica Drevis, Aya's mother. So yeah, if we look, like, now that I look at all three of them, they're all kind of different, because if you look, like, it looks all different. Like, I mean, the dress between the classic and the remaster is the same kind of color, yet there's other designs that are different. For example, obviously the pattern on her top is a bit different. Also, there's obviously there's a little bit more there's a little bit more skin showing than in the classic version. Yeah, so there's a bit more skin, bit more the pattern's a bit different. I think there might be a little bit more detail on her necklace, I think. Yeah, here it looks like a red diamond, where it looks just like a gem. Yeah, whereas if you in the remake, it looks completely different. Like, it's a much lighter shade of blue, and again the pattern around her chest is a bit different. Also showing lesser skin, but yeah. Also, I think her hair might be a slightly different shade of brown as well. Now that I look at it, yeah. I think, you know, again, I think. All around, I'm not saying anything, like, regardless if I think one design is better than the other, I still think they're all good designs all around. You know, I do like these designs in general. Like, there's not really any designs I dislike, really. You know, they're all good, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. But yeah, moving on. Okay, next up we have Robin, one of Alfred's subjects who helps Aya. So yeah, if you look at the classic and the remaster, it's pretty much the same design, just a slight bit of upscaling. And again, another character I felt like was in bit of a need of a redesign, and my god does he look good in this new one. Like, there's a bit more, like, again, there's just, in the remake, there's just more detail. It's in general, like, they've, like, redone his bandage design. they've kind of made the rot on his face where his wound is a little more subtle. It's not as obvious. Like, you can't see the rot on his face like you can in the remaster. Like, it's kind of there, but it's not as defined as what it was in the remaster and remake in classic. Again, a slightly different kind of lighting in his hair, which I think looks quite nice. The blood splotches are a bit different. But again, just overall, I'm pretty happy with how all these designs turned out. Okay, next up, the zombie mother, one of Alfred's subjects. Yeah, the classic and remaster, it's pretty much the same design. I did say that with a lot of these. A lot of these designs are pretty much the same thing, just slightly upscaled. And I mean, again, they're good designs, but yeah. Yeah, not really much to say. Not really much to say about that. Again, the blood is still the same. It's the exact same like position of the blood and all that. Whereas again, she looks completely different in the remake, and she's got kind of like a withered effect over her. A lot of the remake designs do have this kind of withered effect, which I think looks quite nice. I don't know. I definitely think the withered effect definitely fixes a little bit that I wasn't too happy about in the remaster. But again, not too much to say. But yeah, you can definitely. There's not too much to say, but you can definitely notice the difference once you see them all side by side. Okay, next up we have Coraline, the zombie daughter, one of Alfred's subjects. And okay, so you might notice there's a really big difference between the classic and the newer versions here. Mainly her hair color. In the classic version, she was blonde, and this. Honestly, this really annoyed me. This really off in the remaster, like really off. But in the classic version, her hair was blonde. Yeah, in the remaster, they changed her hair from blonde to brown. And honestly, it's one of those cases where, like, did you really need to? You know, you grew up with the, you know, again, I grew up playing the classic version for a while, so it just, I don't know, it just bothered me. It just kind of bothered me, like, did they need to? So yeah, that really annoyed me. Like, don't get me wrong, I like the pose. The pose is more expressive. I like the pose. What I don't like is the hair colour. I didn't like the fact that they changed the hair colour. Like, they didn't need to do that. I really don't think they need to do that, to be honest. I'm a little more happier with the remake design. Because if you notice it's got the withering effect, which makes it a little harder to tell what color the hair is, like whether it's blonde or brown. It's a little harder to tell, which kind of, you know, it's kind of a bit more left up to interpretation whether it's blonde or brown, really, because of the withering effect. And I definitely think that fixes things, at least for me, because again, when the remaster came out, I think this is the one thing that kind of triggered me just a bit. You know, this is the one thing out of all the redesigns, this is the one that off the most. But I definitely think they fixed things with the remake. Yeah, super happy with how that turned out compared to the remaster. Okay, Headless Man, one of Alfred's subjects. So again, it's not really that much, to be honest. Again, I mean, if you look very closely, the differences, like, there are some differences. It's a bit more subtle. For example, the newer ones, like there's a bit more depth in the eyes. Again, just more depth in general. Yeah, not really too much to say, but if you look close enough, you can notice some differences here and there. Like, there's a bit more detail in the chest and the neck, and just in general more, you know, just more depth, really. Okay, next up, the mute subjects. The mute woman, one of Alfred's subjects. Okay, so, yeah, her design in the classic version is you know, kind of generic. So I do like what we did in the remaster, making her look a bit more different. Like, I mean, yes, they changed her eye color from green to more of a black color, or maybe it is green. It's just a little harder to tell. But yeah, and again, they're all good designs in my opinion. But apart from the remastered version of the Zombie Daughter, I kind of like these designs quite a bit. Whereas obviously the remake, it's literally just that design, just with a slightly different color tint and the withering effect, which again, it's not a bad effect, it's not a bad design, it still does the job. Yeah. Okay, next up we have the Eyeless Girl, one of Alfred's subjects. This is the only character that I've done 2 sprites for, just because it's significant. And there's a bit of a difference here, and I have spoke a little bit about this during the episode we saw her. But basically, if you notice here in the classic version, her eyes are gone, but there's no blood. Whereas in the newer versions, they've actually put blood in there, which, as gruesome as it is, I kind of like that because it's a little more realistic, you know. And I also like the fact that when she puts her eyes back in, that she's kind of wiped the blood away. I just kind of wish that they had blood smears on her fingers or on her hands, or just so you can see where she's wiped the blood off. But that's only a minor criticism. It's not a big deal. It's just something that I would do if it was me. And again, the remake is exactly the same one as the remaster, just slightly upscaled and with a withering effect. But again, still pretty good designs all around. Okay, next up we have the Hungry Boy, one of Alfred's subjects. Now, this is another character I would say who was in dire need of a redesign, because, again, his design in the classic and remaster is very, very basic, and it's, again, exactly the same design. Not even that much detail, like, again, maybe a bit of upscaling, but it's pretty much the same design, just slightly upscaled, whereas in the remake, he looks completely different. Like, if you look at his face, like, you know, his eyes are more dead, like, there's less feeling in his eyes, like, you can tell that he's not, and, yeah, you can tell he's not eaten in absolutely ages. You know, his other designs look just kind of look like your, like, typical, like, peasant, from Wolf RPG Maker. You know, just a standard NPC, whereas there's a bit more, I don't know, it just looks a bit more more unique. Slight change in the hair color, and yeah, you can definitely tell that he's not eaten in a long time. And I quite like that. I quite like his redesign. It again adds more depth, but yeah, super pleased how this turned out. Okay, next up we have Jean Rooney, a poor and sickly girl who comes to Aya's clinic. Now, again, the difference here is not too much. It's pretty much exactly the same thing with the classic and the remaster, whereas if you look in the remake, I didn't notice this until I put all these side by side, but her hair is a slightly different colour. It's still brown, but it's a slightly more, I don't know, slightly more, I've forgotten the particular shade of brown, but it's definitely more noticeable, I think, if you look side by side. And again, not too much to say, but it's definitely there if you notice it. Like the difference is definitely there if you compare them like this. Okay, next up we have Ines, one of Alfred's subjects who helps Aya. Again, different. Again, the classic and remaster is pretty much the same thing, just slightly upscaled, I think. Whereas obviously in the remake, she looks a lot paler. Her hair is slightly darker, shade of blonde, a bit more paler, and yeah, just again, a lot of these differences are rather subtle. Like some of them are non-existent, and some of them are very subtle. You're not really going to notice them unless you have them side by side like I do. Which is obviously why I did this in the first place. And finally, last but not least, Olga, a mysterious salesman who is not of this world. Again, not really much here. I mean, if there are any differences, they're very, very subtle. Like, I mean, again, just look at them like it's... again, not really much of a difference. I think the remake, his like the line, like his eyelashes, is a bit like the lining around his eyes is a bit more dark and a bit more detailed, but not really that much. Like you know, again, you've got to be looking really closely to notice, basically. Okay, so the first little difference I want to show is how the game controlled. Okay, so originally, back in the classic version, the original version of the game didn't support controllers at all. It wasn't until the remaster where it started doing controls, so no control support. So basically, you would move Aya around with the arrow keys. You would press Z to interact with various things. You would press X to open your menu. Once you got the chainsaw, you would press the C key to equip your chainsaw. I don't have it right now, or I can't equip it in here, but yeah, you would press C to equip and de-equip the chainsaw. And also quick time events were very different. If I actually initiate one, so if I begin a quick time event, so quick time events are very simple here. Basically, just mash Z. Mash Z and that's it. Just mash Z and you're pretty much guaranteed to win. So the remastered version of the game allows controls. You can still use the keyboard if you want, but it also gives you the option of having a controller. So you can move Aya around with the left thumbstick or D-pad. You could interact with things with the A button. You can open up your menu with the B button. When you've got the chainsaw, you can press X to equip the chainsaw. And as for quick time events, they've changed a little bit. It's not just mashing Z anymore. There's actually a bit more to it. Basically, when I begin a quick time event, there's going to be a few prompts on screen, and basically, you need to hit the directional buttons in sequence before your health runs out. And in the remake of the game, once again, you can use the controller and the keyboard like previously. Except the game is also on Switch, so obviously it also takes the Switch controls into consideration as well, depending on what you're using. But you move around Aya with the left thumbstick or the D-pad. You can interact with things with the A button. Open up your menu with the B button. The chainsaw is a bit different too. I don't have it right now, obviously, but you can press X to swing the chainsaw instead of just equipping it, which is much better in my opinion. And the quick time event is pretty much the same thing as before. Basically, it's just basically where you hit all the buttons in sequence, all the directional buttons in sequence before running out of HP. Okay, so the next change that I noticed is here in the bathroom. It's with the zombie. So if you go in here, there's a zombie in the bathroom, which its behaviours change throughout multiple versions of the game. So this is the classic version. You see here, you go and get the cafeteria key, and then the zombie chases you on your way out. Like I said, the zombie chases you, it can damage you, but yeah, but if we go back in, see, the zombie just climbs back into the bath and doesn't really bother you. I mean, not that you really need to come back in here after that, but yeah, the fact that the zombie actually chases you, I mean, again, you really, in a game like this, you kind of need little scares like that in a game like this. Okay, so this is another one of the changes that kind of annoyed me about the remaster. So if we go over here, the bathroom's a bit bigger, and if we go and get the cafeteria key this time, and then the zombie is there, yeah, it doesn't really bother us. Like, see, we can just run around the bath, we can just like kind of like run all over the place, and it just doesn't bother, it literally doesn't go after you at all, which is, you know, kind of disappointing, since, you know, again, that's perfect in a game like this. You know, you need those types of scares, and the fact it just, you know, it's just very, very disappointing. Again, like the change with the zombie daughter design, this is one of the changes that kind of left, I don't know, this is one of the changes that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth with the remaster, but luckily the remake fixed. Still a bit disappointing, but that's not all. In the remaster, after you go back in, you'll notice the zombie isn't there anymore. Yet, if we go over to the toilet, yep, so instead of chasing you, he just tries to flush himself down the toilet once you go, which is, you know, I mean, it's just very disappointing. Again, this is one of the changes that kind of made me prefer the classic over the remaster, and left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth as a result. Okay, so the remaster, the zombie in the remaster version was a little bit disappointing, but luckily this fixed it. So if we go into the bathroom now, yes, the zombie isn't, okay, the zombie is not in the bath this time, but the good thing is it actually chases you. So it's not the cafeteria key, this time it's just a gem. So we grab the gem, like so, and so yeah, the little bit of a fright, the little fright that you get in the classic version, it may have been gone for the remaster, but it's back there in the remake. And the thing is, if you go back in there, it actually goes after you again. I think if you go in the second time, it only goes after you if you, yep, see, there we go again. So yes, so yeah, I definitely say I prefer the remake version over the remaster, definitely. Again, there's a couple of things in the remaster version which I didn't really like all that much, but luckily what was broken in the remaster was fixed in the remake. Okay, the next difference I would like to show is, well, anyone who knows, when you go down here to get to Alfred's lab, usually there's something blocking the way. In the classic and remaster version, it's a amalgamation of either Alfred's corpses or test subjects or something, but yeah, it's an amalgamation of something horrific either way. And what you need to do to get past it is to burn it. Basically, what you need to do is you want to go about to get the lighter and lighter fuel, so you can get the. There's a bit of a process to it. It's not that difficult. If you go through the game normally enough, you should find it on your own anyway. But basically, you need to get the lighter and lighter oil. You can get the oil from the cafeteria kitchen. You can get the lighter from the dressing room, and you get the I think there's something else you get from the little area you go with Snowball with. But basically just combine all that and make yourself a lighter and lighter oil, and then make sure you read the flame egg in the archives room. That's very important, and then you'll be able to burn it. Now, you'll see what I mean. So here is in the classic version. So just throw it. And so as you can hear, it makes a really horrific noise. This is something that's kind of disappointing. As good as the remake is, this is one of the things I wish they kept. So this is it in the classic version. Obviously with the horrific noise it makes. And now that's basically us able to get to the basement now. And here we are in the remaster. So as you can see, the behemoth is there again. Again, you want to get the lighter and lighter fuel. The process is exactly the same as in the classic version. So if you know what to do in the classic version, the process is pretty much the same thing. The only difference is in the dressing room, instead of cutting a box, you have to cut a web to get to the box. That's the only difference, but same process. Just get the lighter and the lighter fuel and read the flame egg, and then just throw the oil and burn it. Yeah, the scream isn't quite as horrific in the remaster as it is in the remake, which is a little disappointing in my opinion. You know, it is a horror game, so that's a little disappointing. Once again, Aya runs away. And now we're basically able to get into the lab now. And here we are finally in the remake. Yeah, it's compared to before, it's very disappointing. They've turned it from an amalgamation of monsters to amalgamation of discarded dolls. Yeah. Compared to the remake, compared to the classic and the remaster, it's a little disappointing. So it's still blocking the way, but Aya's not freaked out by it this time. And also the process is a little bit different. Instead of a lighter, this time you need to get a torch, and if you read the flame egg, it'll actually give you a step-by-step instruction of what you need to do. You need a log that you can get from the kitchen cafeteria. You'll need some string, which you can get from the little room you can go to as Snowball, and you also need some cloth, which you can get from the dressing room, from a old dress that you can rip off a piece off with the knife that you get from the archives room. The process is a little bit different, but it's pretty much the same thing. So instead of a lighter, you need a torch, and then you want to dip the torch in oil, which is you want to dip it in oil, which is in here. And then after that, you want to go back to where the fireplace is in the archive room, not the archive room, the reception room. And you want to go to the fireplace and use the torch, light the torch. And now you want to make your way to where the dolls are and burn it. Basically, if you see this on the floor, that's basically an indication that you've met all the requirements, basically. And then we just burn the doll. We don't need to worry about throwing. We don't need to worry about throwing anything at them to make them flammable, because it turns out they're already lying on something flammable. So just throw the torch, and Yep, it burns. Yeah, it burns. It doesn't scream because obviously it's just dolls, not something that's alive. And Aya doesn't get freaked out this time. She just stays. Well, she backs away a little bit, but she doesn't run upstairs like she did. But in my opinion, I'd personally say that the classic and remaster did it better. That's, you know, as much as I give the remake praise, that's one little thing I find about the remake that's just a little disappointing in my opinion. Okay, so next I'm going to show you a couple of dialogues that have changed through the versions. Yeah, basically, as good as the classic version was, some of its dialogue was a little unfortunate, should we say. Like this first one. Basically, when you go to Maria and find the key at her feet, the dialogue's, well, it's, I mean, again, it's meant to be, I guess it is meant to be innocent, you know, because Aya is, you know, I mean, she's only a kid, so it is innocent to her, but, you know, to anyone, you know, out of context, it doesn't sound great. But if you go to Maria here, she's fainted. And if you click her again, there's something under her skirt. Yeah, not really a great line, is it? I mean, again, it's perfectly fine for Aya because, again, she's only a kid, so it is meant to be perfectly innocent. But taken out of context, it's not great because that obviously doesn't leave much to the imagination, really. You know, I mean, you know, that can be taken out of context, and that can be kind of perverted for some people. So, yeah. Got a room key. So yeah, they did change things in the remaster and the remake, but I'm only going to bother showing the remake because it's pretty much the same thing in the remaster. So yeah, in the remaster and the remake, if we go and speak to her now, she's fainted. She's fainted. There's something by her feet. Yeah, that's a lot better. You know, saying this thing by her feet is a lot better instead of just saying there's something under her skirt, because yeah, it just doesn't sound too great. It makes a lot more sense by it being by her feet as well, because you know, under her skirt, that's just gonna, you know, when you think of something like that, you immediately just think of, you know, her panties. That's really, you know, it doesn't, again, it just. So, yeah, not really great. I mean, as good as the classic version is, its wording for some of the dialogue was a little unfortunate. And again, saying it's by her feet makes a lot more sense, in my opinion. Okay, the next noticeable change in dialogue is in Maria's backstory. So, if you go to Maria's backstory, there's a little bit of a change here. It's, again, not super, well, it's kind of noticeable, but it's not significant, but it is, you know, it is there if you knew it before. Basically, it's when Alfred pops up. So this is pretty much all the same exactly. But then when Alfred comes, a bum. Basically, that's the difference. So basically, originally Alfred would come across Maria saying a bum, and that was changed in the remaster and remake version. I think that's an idea. I think that's an example of like American English versus English, the original English, the superior English. But yeah, basically, I think Americans use the like say bum and as in to refer to a homeless person, whereas over here in the UK, you know, we would just call them a homeless person, because a bum, that's not a word we use to describe a homeless person. In fact, like a bum literally just means just your backside, and that's pretty much it. So if we were to refer to a homeless person, we would literally just call them a homeless person. But yeah, this was changed. I don't know what it... I don't know the word it's changed to. You know, again, it's just something that jumped out to me personally. Okay, and here we are in the remake. It was also changed up in the remaster, but I figured it would make more sense to show just the remake since it's more or less the same anyway. But here we are in the remake. Again, this is all the same as before. And then here comes Alfred. A vagrant? Vagrant? I've never heard that word either. I've never heard a bum being used to refer to as a homeless person. I've never heard vagrant either. Like usually because there are a lot of homeless people here in the UK, like especially around my area, quite a bit. So we do see homeless people like somewhat regularly on a daily basis. But yeah, we don't have a special word for it. Like we literally just call them homeless people. I think if we do have another word for them, it's probably very, very rude. So we just call them homeless people just because it's a little more polite. But yeah, that's another change in dialogue, and that's the only one that I noticed. Like there might be others, but those are the two big ones that jumped out to me personally. Okay, now moving on to version exclusive content. Stuff that wasn't in the classic version but was added into versions later on. So the first little cutscene I'm going to show is one that was added into the 2020 remake. If you try this in the classic or remastered version, nothing's going to happen. But here in the remake, if we go to Robin, this is right after Maria threw a bunch of knives at him. But if you go to Robin, Aya, don't go. It's an honor to be able to stay and work here. No need to be so formal. You'll be living here after all, so feel free to think of us as family. No, I couldn't do that. Please, don't be so modest. It's been hard for you since your family passed away, yes? Well, yes, but I recall you saying you had a sister, correct? Wait, Snowball. Sheesh, always quick to run off. That girl is my daughter, which makes her your new little sister. My new sister? Her name is Aya. I will introduce the two of you later. She can be terribly shy, so she might not think of much of you at first, but please, be nice to her. Yes. A new sister? How idiotic. As if anyone could replace her. All the dots. You'll catch a cold sleeping out here. Mother, I love you. All the dots. You know, this takes me back. I think you were just a little bit like my sister. She was right there, but I let her die. Only I made it out alive. I'm sorry. No. Mother, don't go. You've lost someone precious too, Aya. You've got to let go and move forward. There's no one for a replacement. There's no need for a replacement, but when I see your innocence, it makes me want to protect you. I'll keep protecting you and your family, Aya. You can count on that. Not moving at all. Yep, and that is so that was Robin's backstory, completely new and exclusive to the 2020 remake. If you go and interact with him at this point in the classic or remaster, nothing will happen. And here we are in the classic version of the game. Not moving at all. Yep, same goes for the remaster. So that scene we saw is completely exclusive to the remake. Okay, the next new cutscene I'm going to show you is round about here-ish. It's right after Alfred's backstory puzzle. So after you do the two puzzles, like the one with the mirror puzzle and then the puzzle that's Alfred's backstory, after you do that and you go out to here, and then after you go down those stairs, a new cutscene will happen, which was added into the remaster. It's not in the classic version, it's in the remaster and the remake, but if you go down these stairs, and then you go here, there's a new cutscene. Kill me. It hurts. So kill me. No. Kill me. Just kill me. No, stay away. Kill me! Finally. Rest. And here we are in the classic version. If we just go beyond this door once again. Yeah, there's a crow here. Okay, the next new added cutscene I'm going to show you is Ines' backstory, which was added into the remaster version. So basically, it's right here. The actual cutscene is inside the incinerator. So if you go inside the incinerator, or before you go into the incinerator, so Ines is right here, and there's a knife in her chest. Pull it out, and after that, you'll get her backstory. Got a scalpel. Why? Aya. You rotten thief. You're gonna pay if you come back here again. Poor thing. Come to my home. I'll give you some good food. Don't be shy. As of today, you are part of the family. This is Aya, your little sister. I'm gonna be a big sister. Hey Aya, it's me, your sister. You told me I'd be family. You lied. Why, Father? I just wanted to be a part of your family. I'm sorry. And here we are back in the classic version. So we go into the incinerator room. There's Ines just like before. There's a knife in her chest. Pull it out. Got a scalpel. All the dots. I just wanted to be a part of your family. And she fades away. So yeah. I definitely feel like it was good to have that scene in there because we learn more about them, and yeah, Aya seemed a lot more sympathetic and a little like, again, she seemed, because she doesn't know Ines, like, because she didn't see a backstory, she seems a little more cold. Whereas in the newer version, she definitely seems a little more understanding, a little more sympathetic, you know? So yeah, definitely think it was good that they added that scene in. Okay, and the final new cutscene I want to show is here. Basically, it's just before you go into the lab with the portal to the other world. So right towards the end, like right before the end game, basically. So after burning the doll and then coming back here, and you go through that door, and there'll be a new cutscene which I will now demonstrate. Why? Didn't you know it from the beginning, and yet you still want to help him? I don't know. I don't know what I should do. But I have to go. Father's all I have, and whatever happens, I'll support Father. That's what I promised Mum. You're still going on about that? Your mother has forgotten all about any promise. And now, she's torturing him. That might be true, but I know she was sincere about that promise. So, even if Mum has forgotten about it, I can never forget it. If you go save your father, won't innocent people suffer again? I'll prevent that from happening. Prevent it? How? He's a kind father, so I know he can change. What a child. People don't change that easily. And here we are in the classic version. Again, same place, same point in the game. I've just burned the doll and now we're back here. And if we go back through these doors, nothing! Okay, and the last little difference that I wanted to show here is giving the bone to the dog for the last gem. So this is going to come up in the gem guides, obviously, but I just want to point out here because there is a bit of a significant difference, and it took me the longest time to find the last gem. So as you all know, in the remaster and the remake of the game, at this point, after getting the key back from the zombie dog, you can go and speak to this mandrake who's wandering around the bone, and he will give you said bone. And then you've got the bone, and now if you go all the way back to the dog, so we're all the way back here, and now I've got the bone. Just give the bone to the dog, and he will give you your first to last gem. Okay, so here we are in the classic version. As you can see, the dog is here knocked out. We've got the key, we've already took care of the doll and all that. But if you look, the mandrake is just wandering around here with no bone. Speak to him. Doesn't give you a bone. Yeah, so what gives? Well, like I said, that gem is still in the game. It's just, the game kind of makes you figure it out for yourself. It's not as easy, because again, with the Mandrake giving you the bone, that's the game telling you, here, this is how you do it. Whereas now, you kind of have to figure it out for yourself, and it is tricky. So for anyone trying to find this last gem, again, this will be brought up in the classic gem guide, but let me show you how it's done in the classic version, as it is a little tricky to anyone who's not familiar with this method. In fact, I had to Google it to find out. Okay, so in the classic version, you want to come back to here. This is the second doll section. You can get it while you're going through it the first time round, or you can come back later after disposing of the doll, when all the dolls have died, which will make this a lot easier. But you want to go up to any one of these skeletons on the floor and interact with it. Hang on. There, got a bone. So you gotta go to, I think, I got it from this skeleton, so maybe it is a specific one, but you gotta go to one of the skeletons and get a bone, and then you basically just want to give the dog the bone. And then he will give you your second to last gem. Or maybe it's the last one. I can't remember. I know it's one of the last 2 gems. But there you go. That's the last gem. Okay, and that is going to about do it for our little comparison video. There's probably a bunch of stuff that I missed here and there, as there is a lot, and you know, you can't expect me to cover every little thing. But I think I covered all the important stuff. So anyway, that's going to about do it for this video. This video's already pretty long as it is, so I'm not going to bother doing my usual stuff. So yeah, in the next time we will be beginning with the gem guide, starting with the remake gems. So until then, have a good day, you guys.